little additions. The idea is always, to give you an opportunity to show that you've learned what we did, and that you can maybe try and do something a little bit new with it. And here you can see, how what a powerful framework this is. We're just going to add one thing. We're going to add tax, and we can we can recognize a whole lot of different things here. So, all right. So the problem starts off. Same setup with the utility function, this kind of utility like in the lecture. And the only thing now that's different in terms of the budgets that we have an income tax. For each unit of something should be a consumption tax. Not an income tax, a tax for each unit of consumption. There. Change it, otherwise I'll forget to change that. So we have to do a tax on consumption. Right, so we have in the first period our income we can use to save or we can use to consume. But now each unit of consumption doesn't cost 1, it costs 1 plus tau. I think it's like a value-added tax. I think in Vietnam, a lot of it's like 8% or about 9%. There's a tax. The price that you end up paying is the price plus the tax. All right? Then in the second period, you now have your income, but you also now have an income from savings. And you use this income to pay your consumption, where the consumption doesn't just have a price of 1, but the price is 1 plus tau. Right, so the idea, right, we have the price is 1, is what I'm saying. So in a model like this, it's a real model. We're expressing everything in terms of the price of the good. Okay? But we always have the ability, and every economy is a nice thing to know. We call it the numeraire of the French literature, is we can define everything as 1. Right? So in Vietnam, dong, one dong, that's the unit of account. Right? I mean, we usually calculate things in thousands of dong, but there's still 1 dong. That's the 1. Here, 1 is the price of the good. Right? I'd like to show some things. So I've got like some different ones, from around the world. And in Germany, we have this coin, and it's got a 1 on the back. That's the euro. So everything's expressed relative to this coin. This is a Singaporean dollar. Right? I don't know, I'll just send some of these around if you want to take a look. Right? And in America, we don't use the coin so much, but we have the bill, right? We have our 1 there. So it's all relative.
Sưu tầm. Để sưu tầm. Đưa xuống tiếng, đưa xuống. Em không coi.
And one reason why American data is useful is there hasn't been a currency reform in America. Let's go ahead and pass this. So what I mean by that is that the 1 is the same one as this coin, which is $1 from 1971. Right? A little bit bigger.
1971.
It's still the same 1 as this dollar from 100 years ago. I could spend with. It's silver. It's not a lot of silver, but still, right? Or it's still $1, the same $1 from 150 years ago. It goes, they haven't changed the currency in America since 1792.
thầy sưu
The
tầm
dollar has always been the dollar, right? And this makes things
đẹp.
useful when you're comparing currency because, or comparing across time, because you have this stability. Right? In Germany, if you compare before the euro and after the euro, suddenly you have to change the value of things. You use the exchange rate. Maybe not a big deal, but a lot of things change in that moment. And it's not just changing the unit of account, which is what this is, but maybe people react differently to it. We'll think about this and we'll come back to this idea when we look at sticky prices. Right, so here, the one isn't one dong, isn't one Singaporean dollar, 1 euro, 1 US dollar. It's the price of one unit of the good. That's just the unit of account. But when we want to buy a unit of the good to consume, we don't just pay one, we have to pay one plus the tax. Yeah? All right. When you put these two together, right? So I was trying to figure out. Here, I think there's a little bit of a mistake here. What I would do is put, yeah, there we go. See, that's the nice thing with the whiteboard. There's no mistake there. That's exactly correct. And now when we try to put this together here, though, we've got something here and hanging out a little bit. So I like, you know, the nice thing about what she did here with using the summation notation is you can then already see, wait a second, we could do this for 3 periods, 4 periods, 5 periods, t periods, right? So what we would see here, we have then 1 plus tau.
Yep.
1 plus r. Oh. I'm going to do it step by step before I get to the summation. Right, so I have 1 plus tau C2 plus 1 plus r C1 equals y2 plus 1 plus r y1. I would express this instead of relative to the end period to the first period. If I divide everything through by 1 plus r, so with this discounting, I would get 1 plus tau, 1 over 1 plus r C2 plus C1 equals 1 over 1 plus r y2 plus y1. And then, if I'm going to write this in a sum notation, I would get 1 plus tau equals the sum I equals 1, 2, 1 over 1 plus r I minus 1 ci equals 1, 2, 1 over 1 plus r I minus 1 y I. Here we see, so if we go to instead of 2 to 3 to 4 to any arbitrary t, we have this discounting here, that's the present values. This gives us the present value from the perspective of period 1 of income. And this is the net of tax, present value of consumption. Tap this all up before I so what we see is the effect of this constant tax, and that's, let me get to that later, why that's so important, is this tax, when it's constant, all it does is it increases the present value of consumption, right? So if we keep our income the same, we have to pay more for consumption on all periods. I think that's going to make consumption go down, right? We're going to do the math, but that's my first intuition. Okay, derive the optimality condition of the household maximization problem analytically and interpretive. So here, what I think is, what I like a lot about what you did is I showed up to like 3 different methods on the board yesterday, how to solve the maximization problem, and you have a 4th one. That's a different one. Yeah? You substitute in for C1 and C2 and said, okay, I'm just going to determine savings. Right? So this is a different method than what I did yesterday, and look, it works too. You know? Yeah? Fantastic. Yeah? So remember, it's the consumption savings problem. Well, okay, why don't we just figure out savings? That should give us the same answer, and indeed it does. Right? So we have our utility. Right. The discounting obviously showed it there, so it's just a typo. And for C1, you substituted in C1. And for C2, you substitute in C2 from the budget constraint. Okay? Now all we have to do is determine savings. So take the derivative of our lifetime discounted utility with respect to S1. And we have the outer derivative, that's the derivative period utility function with respect to C1, times the inner derivative, and that's 1 over 1 plus tau, times minus 1. The same thing here, beta times the outer derivative, that's the derivative of this whole function, then with respect to C2. And the inner derivative is the derivative of C2 with respect to S1, and that's 1 over 1 plus tau times 1 plus r. And you set that equal to 0. All right, and we get the same Euler equation that we had yesterday. And we can then interpret that just like we did yesterday. And, well, wait a sec. Of course we can interpret it just like we did yesterday, because when you look at the first order condition, we have a 1 over 1 plus tau here, and a 1 over 1 plus tau there. They cancel out. So we get exactly the Euler equation yesterday. What does that mean? The tax rate, if it's constant, isn't going to affect our savings decision margin. Right? The savings decision margin is the trajectory. Right? So going from C1 to C2. It's kind of like all we've done is we've just lowered or raised or lowered the whole floor of, right? It's not progressive, no, there's a better way to look at that. We can divide both sides by 1 plus tau here. All we've done is we've just reduced lifetime income. Right? But relative between 2 periods, the relative choice isn't going to be affected. Right? On the margin, right, the rate of return between, of income, or transformation between income between 2 periods hasn't changed. All right, and so then you have the marginal cost, marginal gain, interpretation. Fantastic. All right. Now for part C, let's assume that the real interest rate compensates exactly for our impatience, and there's good reason to think in many times in an equilibrium that's going to be the case. Right? Where's the real interest rate of the market perhaps going to come from? Well, it has to be, right, if it's higher than our patience, our impatience, it means we get compensated more by waiting than we dislike waiting, oh, well then we'll wait. And not just one person, but everyone's going to wait, so we're all going to try to save more, which would tend the market to drive down the return on savings. If the rate of return on waiting is lower, right, than our impatience, then we would choose not to wait. This is going to make capital saving scarce. We're going to wait less. This will tend to then drive up the rate of return. Okay, but so in any case, we just assume that here. We're doing a partial equilibrium. We're not thinking about the general equilibrium perspective here. And we're going to choose a particular utility function, the log of C. Now let's solve the optimal values of C1 and C2 as functions of income tax and interest rate. All right, when two of those are equal, it's fantastic. We get that our Euler equation tells us that the marginal utilities are the same. Right? And so I'm not exactly sure what you mean here, but we have marginal utility of some C is equal to the derivative of the utility of C with respect to C. And so if U of C is equal to the log of C, then U prime of C is equal to the derivative of the log 1 over C. Right, so I would probably write that here 1 over C1 star equals 1 over C2 star. But as a consequence, right, you get the same answer. Okay. And now, right, as soon as you know that they're the same, but wait a second, what does this mean again, same? Smoothing, right? Our house is going to smooth across periods. It's going to smooth perfectly. 1 coffee every day. Yeah? Now we can just put in here, we can replace C2 and C1 with just C, right? Some constant consumption. So here you replace, right, C2 with C1, and you solve for C1, right? And exactly. So they're both going to be the same, but we see now that they depend. I mean, there are different ways that you can write it to think about it a little bit differently. Maybe another way would be 1 over plus R. Plus R over 1 plus 2R plus tau y1 plus 1 over 1 plus R y2. Right, just giving us this present value of income. Right, but it's the same thing. It just might be it's a different way of interpreting it. And right, what's then here straightforward as to C is as tau goes up, right, that whole term gets smaller, so it's going to reduce consumption. Right? Right. We were sure if we increase taxes on consumption, it's going to reduce consumption, and whoosh, right, that came out. But when you're working on research and you're Science is never like the, I know the answer beforehand, and then I get the answer and I'm happy. There's this great quote in Western Europe that we like from the Greek inventor and scientist and philosopher Archimedes. I don't know if you've ever heard of Archimedes, right? And when he figured out, what was it? I think how water or boats float. He was in his bathtub and he figured out how when you go down the bathtub it pushes the water up, and so boats function by displacing water. He was so excited, he yelled, jumped out of his bathtub and was running through the streets of Syracuse. He forgot to get dressed, the guy was a little crazy, screaming, "Eureka, Eureka," which means, it was Greek for "I found it." Yeah? That's usually not how science works. Science usually works when you find something and you say, "Huh, that looks interesting," or "Ooh, that's weird," or "That's not what I expected." That's usually how science happens. But that's okay. Here we're working on a problem set and it came out exactly as we expected. We
Cái
anticipated
chỗ
there's
1
no,
cộng 2R đó đâu?
that's weird, that's funny.
Cái 1 cộng R chia 1 cộng 2R.
But there we go.
Hai
Okay.
cộng R á, mà thầy nói
So that's
Nó đâu có 1
C.
cộng đằng trước
And
thôi.
now let's take this one step further. Let's assume that the tax rates are different in the two periods. Oh, okay. All we have to go back now, and we can start from the beginning, but we can start at any point in time where we can still recognize period 1 and period 2, and that's exactly what you do here. You said, I know this comes from period 1, so this should be tau 1. And this tau, this is from the C2 component, it should be, right, yeah, it should be tau 2. Right, and now we get this marginal rate of substitution. Right, although we could put for the marginal rate of substitution, I would bring like, we haven't changed our preferences. What we want is the same whether the government raises or lowers taxes, right? Right, so our marginal rate of substitution, that's our preference-based component, right, is the same. But now we see, and this is the insight to why taxes didn't matter before. You see, when taxes are the same, that leaves the marginal rate of transformation between two periods the same. But now, if the taxes are different, right, the marginal rate of transformation is going to change. Right, okay, and then you take the beta 1 plus r is equal to 1 from above. And we see now that where the relative marginal utilities was equal to 1, they're now greater than 1. Right, and so this, we can now, let's go through the logic, just knowing, and then I'll go to what you wrote down below, but let's just think of this intuitively. We know that marginal utility from consumption, or utility from consumption, is a positive first derivative and a negative second derivative. That means that marginal utility from consumption is decreasing in consumption. Think of this as hunger. The more you eat, the less hungry you are. Right? Okay. So now we need hunger today and hunger tomorrow to not be equal, but we need to be hungrier today than tomorrow. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to eat less today than I will tomorrow. I'll be hungrier today than I'm going to be tomorrow. All right? So that's it. So what I like what you did here, what's really interesting is you then work through, you made it more general. I said take everything from C, so we can also take the log utility setup. So we take the log utility, so U prime equals 1 over C. That's the derivative of the log. Then we would get then C2 over C1 equals 1 plus tau 1, 1 plus tau 2. This was greater than 1. Right, so C2 equals 1 plus tau 1, 1 plus tau 2. C1 is greater than C1. I'm going to be hungrier today than tomorrow. But this is cool. So, I mean, what you did is you took what I just explained intuitively, and you actually did it then here graphically. Okay? All right, I like that. So we have utility is concave, right, which is going to give us then this convex marginal utility. So we have positive marginal utility, but as consumption increases, marginal utility goes down. Right? As we consume more, we're less hungry. Right? Super. All right, so that's exactly what you have here. You have C2 has to be greater than C1 if C1 is greater than C2. So you came to the same conclusion that I came here with the specific utility function, and or what I did here arguing intuitively, you did it then graphically. Fantastic. Different answer than I was expecting. Full points. Right? It's correct. There's nothing you can say about that. Yeah? All right, so now that's some interpretation. So this, what does this mean? So we have that the tax today is higher than the tax tomorrow. Oh, well this, so like let's say you're thinking of a big purchase. You're thinking maybe you need to buy a new cell phone. Right? You have the Apple announcement this week. Is anyone a big fan of Apple products? No? So, okay. So I was thinking, now wait a second. So now since they just released the iPhone 17, maybe I should see if I can buy an iPhone 16. I'm not a big Apple fan, but my family is. But maybe so that's why I was paying attention to this. So what if there was an announcement from the Vietnamese government that starting next week, there'll be no VAT tax on Apple products? Would you buy the iPhone today, or would you wait till next week? Yeah, wait till next week, of course, right? Higher tax today than tomorrow. This is changing, right, the rate at which you can move things across time. Right, it's changing the marginal rate of transformation. Think it's changing the intertemporal. Right, that's what it's doing, the intertemporal rate of substitution. It's making it cheaper to wait. Right, it's increasing what you get in the future for giving up 1 unit today. Right, you could rewrite this for this case here. You would have exactly the inverse of this factor shows up here as well. And this is greater than 1. So it's increasing the utility gain from shifting consumption from today to tomorrow. Why? If I don't buy something today, not only do I save the cost of that, I also save the tax that I would have otherwise had to pay now. And the tax today is higher than the tax tomorrow. So my savings, net savings in terms of taxes, is then greater than 1 by saving, not buying the item today, so not paying tau 1, buying it tomorrow. I then have to pay taxes, but it's tau 2, which is less than tau 1. Right? So my savings is, I also have savings through decreasing taxes by putting off consumption. Right, and then you can extend this, and now we have, you could go the other way around too. Right, so we can think of now like a tax policy. If we want people to put off consumption, to shift consumption into the future, or if we want people to pull consumption to the present. Right, so maybe, or if we want consumption to decline over time, or if we want consumption today to be higher, right? I don't know, this I'm worried about the effects on our economy today because of the tariffs that Donald Trump is imposing. So maybe we can boost the Vietnamese economy by decreasing tax on consumption here. We can pay this tax back. The government can pay this back by increasing the tax on consumption in the future. So that would entice the Vietnamese people who are thinking of buying something in the next couple of years to do that now. And this might be a good way to make up for perhaps some of the lost consumption, the lost exports that we might have in Vietnam because of the tariffs. Of course, this is gambling on the fact, or the gambling on thinking that maybe the tariffs in the future will go away. Right? So that'd be like the ideal would be there's these tariffs from the United States, and they're only going to be around for a couple of years. So what we can do is increase or decrease taxes for the next 2 years here in Vietnam, and then raise them in 2 years when the tariffs disappear, and this could help smooth out the effects of the temporary tariffs. This, of course, presumes they're temporary. So, okay. So, so now look at this problem. Think of some other things that'd be interesting to look at, right? Instead of, what would happen if instead of consumption tax, what if we added an income tax? Or what if we added in a tax on capital returns, on savings, right? And we could think of adding in different taxes. We could tax everything, right? Be real, government bureaucrats, let's tax everything and then see what happens, right? And I think you should already now have a gut feeling. So if I tax income at different rates across time, it's going to have also an intertemporal effect. Right? Maybe. Or maybe not, right? It's not the... What do you think? Should it matter? If we put an income tax, the tax on Y, that have different income taxes. So a different tax on Y1 than on Y2. Would that make a difference if we have a tax that has like a tau 1 on Y1 and tau 2 on Y2? That would kind of, so what if, just try to think for a second, outside the box. What if instead of C, we tax Y? So we get income 1 minus tau 1 Y1, 1 minus tau 2 Y2. Compare tau 1 equals tau 2 equals tau with tau 1 greater than tau 2. So this is going to reduce our income. All right, less income, less consumption. Right. So in that sense, it's going to be like the consumption tax. Right? It's going to be, instead of 1 over 1 plus t, it's going to be times 1 minus t. It's just going to reduce our income. But now, if we change things across time, it's not going to show up in this first order condition. We'll end up with the same first order condition here. Why? And the whole insight was, for an optimizing household, the timing of income doesn't matter. Yeah? So that's why it's different. The timing of income doesn't matter. It's the present value of income that matters. So the tax will lower the present value of income. It's going to reduce consumption. But if we choose different timing of taxes, as long as the tax on average is the same, the timing isn't going to matter. Right? If that was our insight here, our households can smooth that out. It's different with consumption because essentially the consumption tax, right, is changing the marginal rate of transformation. How we can turn consumption today into consumption tomorrow. Okay. How about if we put a tax on our income from savings? It's also going to change our marginal rate of transformation. So that would also have an effect on this ratio, right? In other words, if the market would pay you the real rate R, but you have to pay taxes on that, then the rate that you care about is the rate that you earn, and that would be 1 plus R minus the tax. It would be lower. Right? So it would be reducing the gain from savings. So you would tend to save less.
Because I see some here. You're above the D from zero. You see the red line? Yeah, that's one. The first components, the first one.
Here?
Yes, I think it's 1 plus R over 1. Oh no, 2 plus R. Because I don't
2
see
plus
any.
R. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Thank you.
Thầy viết lại bị thêm
Minus
nữa,
2 points.
thêm nữa. Sao em bị ấy đúng không? Bị nghi ngờ nhân sinh đúng không?
Thank you. Okay, so now we want to consider an economy where we have 2 types of consumers. The rich and the poor. Oh, I saw an interesting, I don't know if it's interesting, but Elon Musk isn't the richest person in the world anymore. I bet he's very upset. What's that? Would you like to do that? Yeah, let's do it. So, and also, like, I don't know, I mean, you're mostly done with courses, right? How many courses do you have left this? You have the second year, and this is the last year of courses you have with the program, right?
Yes.
How many more courses do you have?
Maybe 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Oh, okay, so you still have some. I would recommend, if you have any other person who teaches, and they give you problem sets, to try and not just practice them beforehand, because I think it's a good way to learn,
Of course.
but what you do is you learn about what the professor wants and the way they grade. So hopefully you see, like, if you do something different than I expect, right, but it's right, I'm very happy. Other professors might be different, and they want you to learn exactly the way they do things, right? I have a different philosophy, but that's their philosophy. How do you figure out which professor is which for an exam? This is a good way. Yeah?